Good evening and welcome to the September 26, 2023 Lower Frederick Township Board of Supervisors work session. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone who is listed on the roll call is present. Sorry. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the Township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the Township website. It's requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name, address, and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes, unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all agenda items have been addressed, but prior to the adjournment of the public meeting. I want to announce we had an executive session on September 6th. To discuss litigation, and also the board, this was not a executive session or a meeting, but the board took Chief Maxey out for a social dinner a week ago to bid him adieu. No business was conducted at that dinner. Administrative actions, we have 3 sets of minutes to adopt with the permission of the board. Can we do that in one vote?
That's fine.
I'll have to abstain from the 23rd. I wasn't present.
You can actually still vote.
I can still vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Terry? Yep. Okay. Are there any additional additions or correction to any of these minutes before we vote? Nope. Okay. Nope. Okay. Would someone like a motion to adopt the meeting minutes for May 23, June 6, and August 22? And I think that gets us all up to date, folks.
You have the mic.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Geiser will second it.
Right, so Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Yeiser made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we have some special guests here today who are going to talk about a report that was completed, I think it was it last year or the year before? Last year, called Return on Environment. And they're here from the Montgomery County Planning Commission. If you could just come and introduce yourselves, and I think we're going to have a slide deck.
You want to tell people in the audience their handouts too?
Yep.
Or they know that already.
Great. All set?
Yes, and are these handouts for the public?
Well, good evening. My name is Bill Hartman. I'm the Trails and Open Space Planning Manager of the Montgomery County Planning Commission. I'm here tonight with my colleague Ellen Miramontes, who works with me in the Trails and Open Space section. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Return on Environment study, which, as Marla mentioned, it was a study that was conducted over the past few years and was concluded in 2022. If you don't know what a Return on Environment study is, it's essentially taking a quantitative look at the economic value of open space. I think we all know what the value of open space is in terms of the benefits that it provides to the environment and our general well-being. But these studies that are called Return on Environment really focus on the quantitative economic value of open space. The study that we conducted and finished in 2022 was not the first time that a Return on Environment study was conducted. In fact, the first one was put together in 2011. This was a partnership between DVRPC, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, and the Green Space Alliance. And that 2011 Return on Environment study was the first time that the economic value of open space was examined. It was done on a regional level, meaning it looked at the 5 counties within southeastern Pennsylvania, and it looked at the economic value in aggregate for all of those counties. And it was a groundbreaking study. It was, as I said, it was the first time open space was looked at this way, and it had a major impact on how municipalities and nonprofit organizations like land trusts could start to justify in a different way the value of open space. So that study sat around for a few years, and it was well used and well read. In 2019, Chester County took the step of conducting a follow-up return on environment study, this time focusing just on their county. And that was a deviation from what was done in 2011, and it was valuable to Chester County because it really allowed them to zero in on their own border. And that was a well-received study. It's a good study. If you're interested in looking at it, you can find it online. And then in 2020, DVRPC approached Montgomery County, actually it approached all the counties other than Chester County because they had just done the study, and some counties in southern New Jersey, and asked if other counties would be interested in conducting these county-focused return on environment follow-up studies to the 2011 effort. And Delaware County and Montgomery counties and two other counties, I believe New Jersey, said yes to that question whether we'd be interested in doing that. And DVRPC subsequently went out and obtained funding from DCNR to help fund the preparation of these return on environment studies. And then in 2021, DVRPC hired a consulting firm known as eConsult, and eConsult was actually the firm that worked on the 2011 study as well. They're very well versed in this type of work. They brought eConsult on board, and they started the process of preparing these return on environment follow-up studies in Pennsylvania, again for Delaware County and Montgomery County. So this was a pretty intensive effort. Looking on the right-hand side of the slide here, the Montgomery County Planning Commission had a pretty active role in the process. We helped put together an advisory committee. In fact, Marla was a member of that advisory committee and provided great input for it. There were actually 32 people on the advisory committee. It really represented a broad range of entities that are interested in open space, all the way from open space advocates to developers. We wanted to get a well-rounded group of people to look at the study. We helped, at the county, help prepare and deliver some of the data that was needed by the consultant. We helped prepare case studies for the report as well. We provided photographs and quotes, and we wrote the introduction and conclusion. And in turn, DVRPC basically managed the entire process and handled the administrative part of it. And the products of that entire effort were multifold. We prepared a full report, which you're happy to have a copy of. We brought a bunch of them tonight. And this gets into the nitty-gritty and the details of the return on environment study. We also prepared a summary brochure if you don't feel like reading the whole report. This is a little bit of this is a quick synopsis of the results, so this is a little easier to read, and perhaps that might be the first thing that you want to look at. We also prepared cards that we could put in kiosks at county parks and so on, trying to get the word out. So it was a great effort, and now we're in the process of trying to go out and get the word out to municipalities. We're kind of preaching to the choir with Lower Frederick because you're so proactive with your open space. You have an open space fund, you have an open space committee, but Marla kindly thought of the idea to bring us here and give you some of the results of the study, and that's why we're here tonight. So I'm actually going to throw it over to Ellen to go through some of the results of the study, and then I'll follow up in conclusion at the end.
So I'll try to move through all of the results fairly quickly here, but just give you some of the big takeaways and dive a little bit into the findings of the report. So next slide. Thank you. So just first off, looking at what is currently protected in Montgomery County right now as open space. And so that we calculated to be a little over 46,000 acres. And there's several different categories of protected open space, but basically we're looking at public parks, trails, preserved farmland, privately conserved land, such as through land trusts, land that is protected in perpetuity. And the categories of ownership you can see here, and you see by the red circle that municipally owned open space is the largest category at 36%. So you can go to the next slide. And here's a map just showing how all of those different categories are dispersed throughout the county. You can see that it's a little heavier on the western side. Go ahead to the next slide. And so taking that 46,000 acres, then these consultants looked at it very closely in terms of these four main values, e-consult solutions. Home and property values, economic activity, environmental services, and direct use benefits in terms of health and recreation. And as Bill likes to say, spoiler alert, the study did show that protected open space adds significant value to Montgomery County's economy, benefits to businesses, to local governments such as yourselves, households, all of these different levels across the board. So we'll dive into the first one, home and property values. So, and this value is looking at basically what is the impact of that protected open space on the value of residential property. That's what the consultants looked at. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. This slide goes over a bit of the methodology that they use. So it's called hedonic progression, but essentially they, holding all other factors constant, they looked at that proximity of protected open space to residential properties, and specifically within a quarter mile and then within a half-mile band. So looking at the differences in that quarter mile, in the quarter to a half mile, and then in the half-mile total. The good news is 92% of homes in Montgomery County are within that half mile. So that's wonderful. So you can go to the next slide. And here we're just calling out a few pretty impressive numbers here. You can see the first circle there on the left, it's in the millions. So it's $2.8 billion dollars in value of the residential housing stock is attributable to its proximity to open space, if that makes sense. It's easy to get tumble on these numbers, or stumble rather. The next circle down, this is in the thousands, so $11,319 for each home, the value of each home within that half mile. $11,000 is attributed purely based on its proximity to open space. And then the third number down is in the millions, 48 million in additional property tax revenue for the county has been derived by that additional value that is attributed to its proximity to open space. So some pretty big numbers. Economic activity, that's fine. Yeah, that's great. So economic activity, this is basically looking at how protected open space creates expenditures, creates jobs, attracts tourists. And then we'll look a little further into what the numbers were that the consultants derived here. Next slide. So they looked at these three areas of economic impact: protected farmland, protected open space, management and maintenance of it, open space related tourism, such as you see in the photo. So you can jump to the next slide. And here are some of the big takeaways. So starting with protected farmland, the consultants found that there was an 8 million annual impact per year based on that protected farmland, with an associated number of jobs of 195 jobs. Protected open space, 112 million in annual impact, with 940 jobs associated open space related tourism, $39 million in annual impact with 420 jobs associated. And so all of those three annual impacts total up to about 160 million in annual impact. So pretty big numbers. We'll go to environmental services. I can thank Phil for this beautiful photo he took out of an airplane right here of Lower Frederick. Beautiful aerial shot. So environmental services, we know that the environment, that protected open space, the environment in those acres of protected open space provides many environmental benefits to our communities. And we'll take a look at what the consultants looked at. So these, you see these 6 different types of environmental services, or sometimes people call them ecosystem services, those words interchangeable, from air pollution removal down to carbon sequestration and storage. The next slide will look at some of the big numbers. So the number on the left in the middle of the circle, the total annual ecosystem services benefit, they total to be 31.6 million, with the highest numbers being in water supply, 15.6 million, and flood mitigation at 7 million. And so keeping this open space protected allows for the long-term preservation and the value of providing these services. If the open space were lost, it would be very costly to replicate the services that the open space now provides for us. And this number here on the right is always really amazing to me. It's looking at specifically in the 46,000 acres of protected open space throughout the county. If you were to look at the tree cover in that protected open space, and you were to put a value on the carbon storage that occurs over the lifetime of those trees, they calculated to be 97.4 million. So if all of those trees were cut down, burned down, whatever happened, we would need to spend 97.4 million to replicate the cleaning of the air and the removal of the carbon that the trees do for us now. So that's always a jaw-dropper for me. So we can go on to the last one, direct use benefits, and this is relating to health and recreation. We know that protected open space provides the opportunity for free or low-cost recreational opportunities like you see these folks doing here. So we'll take a look at these values. So in terms of the direct use benefits, the way that they calculated it is a consumer's willingness to pay. So what would someone pay for a gym membership fee that they can do for free out on our trails and in our parks? And they calculated what that cost would be by the number of average visits they set at 30 per year, by the number of households, and they came up with a total annual recreation value of 219 million based on the preserved, protected open space that we have today in the county. When you divide that by the number of households, you get 680 per household per year. So either you can look at that in terms of a value or savings. Instead of paying for that gym membership, you can go run on the trails and save $680 per year. So the next slide looks at healthcare cost savings. So I won't go through all the details of this, but you can see at the bottom, lost productivity savings, workers' compensation savings, and then moving across to the left, a total annual healthcare savings of 467 million, because people have that access and are staying healthier and more alert in their jobs and not sick and so forth. So just in summary then, you can jump to the next slide. So the study, once again, looked at these 4 impacts and then made these calculations based on the data that we provided the consultants and came up with these numbers. So I think I'm just going to leave it there. I won't review the numbers. Actually, there are some additional slides, that's right. I don't think we need to go through these because I think I took a little longer. You can skip these. I already told you some of these numbers. And then Bill's going to close us out here.
Thanks, Ellen. So just a few things in closing here. As cliche as it is, data is power. The original study that was done in 2011 and now this study that we most recently done focusing on Montgomery County gives us the ability to actually refer to numbers when we talk about open space. It's not qualitative anymore. It's quantitative and qualitative when we try to justify why preserving open space is important. And that was a big step forward. I will say we regularly apply for grants. And whether it's a federal grant or a state grant, when we're talking about open space and those grant applications to DCNR or DCED, when we can quote figures out of the return on environment study, where we can actually refer to specific numbers and all the things that Ellen just talked about, carbon sequestration, healthcare savings, housing value increases, that gives our applications for grant funding some meat. And we feel that that's just one area where we can use these numbers, but when we're trying to go around the county to work with municipalities to encourage them to start an open space program or to start one from scratch or look at something like an open space EIT, when you can pull numbers out, it gives that conversation more gravitas and information that you can refer to. I don't need to tell anyone in this room that open space preservation is a long-term effort. Sometimes it happens quickly. Something comes up and you have to move fast on it. But I would say in all my years of working on open space preservation, the typical model is that it takes years and years to happen. Montgomery County understands that, and obviously the county's not going anywhere. We're a long-term partner for open space preservation, and I think our relationship and open space projects over the years with Lower Frederick are a good example, probably one of the better examples, honestly, across the county of how a municipality and the county work together to preserve open space. So you're a really good model for how we like to be a partner, and our goal is to become a broader partner with more municipalities across the county. I mean, there's 62 townships and boroughs. That's a lot of room to work in. Our goal is to expand what we do. Coming and speaking to groups like you tonight or environmental advisory councils or committees is part of our communication strategy. We also speak at conferences. We did one in the spring. We're doing another one next month at the Pennsylvania American Planning Association conference. Just trying to get the word out. I would ask that like anything else, grassroots communication and grassroots advocacy is probably the best way to get the word out about how open space preservation is important. I ask that you continue to do that within the boundaries of Lower Frederick, but if you're out talking to someone in White Marsh or Montgomery Township or wherever, there's no reason you can't spread the word, not only about open space preservation, but also about the study and the data that it provides. And so we always like to use this opportunity to let you know, and again, you know this, but the county has open space funds available. We typically budget between $2 to $3.5 million a year for open space preservation, and that can be used to leverage local municipal open space dollars like your open space fund to purchase and preserve open space, whether it's a conservation easement acquisition or a fee acquisition. The county is here to partner, and we have money to back that up and to leverage local dollars. So I just want you to know that going forward. As always, if you have any questions or would like to speak further about any of this, again, honestly, we speak to Lower Frederick pretty regularly, whether it's with you or with Phil or any other of the people here who care about open space. But if you ever have any questions or have potential projects, please feel free to reach out. We're always available to talk to you. So, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Happy
Does-
to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Any questions?
Yeah. So we, in theory, then we could use the results of the study to sort of help us with grant proposals, or would we perhaps contact you and say, okay, how can we use this data to, in a proposal? Is that something
Sure.
you could help with? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when we do applications, grant applications for trails, it's easy to talk about miles built, how much you're studying, what you're engineering, how many people use them.
Right.
So when you're talking about an open space grant proposal, when you can extract these figures out of that and put it in an application, it makes it much more compelling when those applications are being reviewed. So yeah, we'd be happy to share our thoughts if you ever had to do
Okay.
that. No? I remember one of the things we talked about on the committee was, how do you find that balance between the right amount of open space and the right amount of development? Because I remember a lot of us were concerned that there is a belief that is pretty widely held that if we just build, then we'll get more tax dollars and everything will be great. But there is actually a balance, because we also learned that open space, for every dollar it costs you in open space, it only costs you pennies to take care of it, whereas for every dollar you get in property tax, it costs more than $1 in services. So I know we didn't really address this in the study, but do you have any thoughts about, like, how do you find that balance?
Are you talking philosophically or quantitatively?
Both.
Chester County study did address that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, right, so Ellen's reminding me
Okay.
that the Chester County study, the return on environment study that they did in 2019, they actually looked at that calculus and came up with some hard figures. We did not do that in our study, and literally every time we come out and talk about it, somebody asks that question. And it's an important question, because when you're deliberating internally and politically about something like that, where you're trying to say like, well, let's develop this because we can get tax revenues, and the other side is saying, let's not develop it because then we won't have to plow the roads, we won't have to provide the sewer service, we won't have to provide the water service, et cetera. Having the ability to have a more quantitative rationale on the open space side would be useful. So I don't have anything to quote you from our study, but I would encourage you to look at the Chester County study, because I think they dedicated a chapter or an appendix to that, and that will give you, and no, those numbers won't apply directly to Montgomery County because they looked at Chester County specific areas, but you could very easily extract the proportionality of those two scenarios, and I think apply it elsewhere. So, but in terms of balancing development and open space, we always say at the county, while we're open space advocates, and this is what we do for our work, we understand that growth is important, and like anything else, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
And but I would say that if you're going to develop smartly and do it in a way where you can have development and open space together, and whether that's in cluster or whatever, there's no reason you can't achieve both if you're going to develop smartly.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience? Anyone on Zoom?
Yes.
Who is it?
Hi, Diane Jordan, Zieglerville Road. I was wondering, you said you had developers participate in your study. Were there approaches that you felt where they thought it was very positive to have open space in their developments?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Ellen, you my memory, you're testing my memory, Diane, because that was a couple of years ago. Did you remember anything specific that they might have said?
I'm not sure I can remember anything specific, but the developer that participated definitely talked about either developing a parcel in a way where you could save open spaces within it through cluster development and preserving those important pieces, or developments near open space and what an amenity and what a draw and how it increases the value of what he was developing just by the very fact that it was adjacent to open space, increased the development. So more in a general sense, I'm not sure if what you might be, what information you might be looking to learn.
No, that was good, thank you. There's also a concern about many warehouses eating up open space these days. Has anyone approached you for information about the cost of losing that open space to a community?
No, I can't think of any examples specifically to about open space in warehouses. I mean, that's dealt with through appropriate zoning. So each municipality will zone the land within their borders, as they see fit, and looking at the different type of land, and hopefully zone lands that look to have rich value and open space, and not to be developed into warehouses. But I can't think of anything specific that's gonna.
No, I would just concur that there are a lot of warehouses being built. We see the applications come into the county, and at least in my time there, the last year plus, I've seen more warehouse applications than in the past. It's real.
Yes. A real concern. Thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming out in the evening.
That's right.
All right. And please feel free to take a copy of their report.
Hey, Jason,
I don't know if
can they
anyone
turn the volume up on that puck thing?
would like a copy. Anyone here would like either a summary brochure or the full report?
I'll take the full report if you have a copy.
Okay, yeah, here's the full report. Would you like both? Okay, yeah, happy to, yeah.
Help remind us on Dominican.
Both?
All right, thank you.
You have
I've
them,
got my
right?
own copy.
Would you like? Sure. Okay, yeah. I might as well give you
got
a
the
summary,
full.
I might as well give you that too. Anybody else?
Yeah.
You want to leave some in the lobby in case people come
Oh,
in?
yeah, happy to do so, yes, of course, yeah.
We'll appropriately get these on the website.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, oh, okay, sorry. Sorry. Anybody else?
Oh, thank you.
You got a hand raised.
Oh, go ahead. Is this a question for our guests?
Yes, it is.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep, this is Brian, 11 Zieglerville Road. I guess my question for the comment regarding the warehouses that are being built, would that not be attributed to the fact that as a community at large, whether it's just Montgomery County or anywhere, attributed to the massive amount of online purchasing now, to which these organizations now need to have sub areas to distribute from? Would that attribute to much of that upbringing of warehousing?
Yeah, so disclaimer, I'm not a real estate warehouse developer, so I don't know the answer to that, but my assumption was exactly what you just described, is that probably is a factor, but I can't say that it's the only factor. the need for distribution centers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, and you don't have to stay for the rest of our meeting if you don't want to. I mean, you're welcome to stay if you'd like, but,
Sometimes they're really riveting in you.
yeah. So the next topic is reserved dormant EDU policy draft discussion.
Okay, so, kind of the next phase of the discussion. So what you have in front of you is the red line version that Peter prepared. So as you can see, now the reference is reserved / dormant EDU policy. We broke it up into categories, whether it's reserved, dormant, or EDUs that were donated or purchased or through like some type of easement agreement with the township, which basically was all in the draft, the original draft you guys had. He just kind of split it out in a different way while also changing the definitions. So obviously Peter not being here, I wasn't sure how you guys wanted to go through this. I have started my data collection that the board had asked me about, so if you want me to go over that prior to kind of, like I said, I don't know how deep dive you want to go. So far, these would be EDUs that are being paid for, but that I'm either being told or I've got proof that they're not in use. I've got nine EDUs. And I'm sorry, this is out of currently 1,124 EDUs or units based on the current building. So far as EDUs where a tap-in fee was paid, but there's no monthly payments, I've got 6. And in regards to where tap-in fees were part of an easement with the township, we have 12. So what I can say, I am starting to dive into the archives and actually am finding really good information, but there's kind of no organization to it. So I'm going through easements, and one of the things that we have kind of aligned to is, like for instance, when the Delphi station was created, it was in the 90s. That predates our QuickBooks, so I've got ledgers from that time, so that's part of the process. But I've only kind of started going, I guess, diving through the archives, so to speak, as far as the use of that, and this would be primarily everything along Gravel Pike. I haven't discovered any other unused, I know Cemetery Lane, that was one that had come up a couple of years ago. So as far as the ones not in use, those were based on properties right now that are either being rehabbed or that we know where a demo had occurred or some type of, so that there's concrete evidence of non-use, but once again, where they've been paying, where the EU have been paid for however many years, the EU was taken out of, well, the actual usage was taken out of action.
So is that the 9?
Sorry?
Were you talking about the 9?
That's the 9.
So they're paying a sewer rent,
Yes.
but they're not currently putting anything into the sanitary sewer system?
Correct. And like I said, it's a variety of either the house was uninhabitable, there was an actual demo, whether from fire or it needed to be demoed, or some type of redevelopment happened that freed up EUs.
So Jason, just a quick question. You gave us 3 categories, one with 9, one with 6, one with 12. None of those are in 2 of the categories, right? They're all meaning property that's part of the 9, wouldn't be in the 12.
No, the 12 are not in use at all. That's its own bucket, because those were determined to be part of an easement with the township.
Okay. So I'm
Yeah,
just-
I'm sorry, I wanted to separate that because we clearly separated that
Yeah.
in the document.
I just wanted to make sure there was no, somebody's not in both these categories.
No, there's no overlap. These are all separate.
Yeah, okay. So it's a total 27 of the 1,124.
Well, so the 6 and the 12, so 18 of those would have to get added on top of our current number because they're not part of the monthly charge.
Oh,
That
okay.
1,124, that was our last sewer billing cycle. That was the total number of EDUs that were being charged.
Okay, so 9 out of 1,124. Okay,
Yes.
which is a pretty small percentage.
Which I think we kind of predetermined. We weren't expecting necessarily to find a lot of these
Yeah.
situations. So I did look through, I mean, because we don't have permit software, I kind of pulled, we have a extensive spreadsheet, so I kind of went through, pulled a couple of demo permits from there. I can certainly, we've had LTL in the years since 18, so, before that, we were in-house, so it may, it's gonna probably take a little more time as far as, any other type of properties where a house was there that was on public sewer and was raised. Kind of like, I don't know how many situations, how many more situations we have where they would have actually been hooked to sewer.
So can we talk a little bit about the proposed draft policy?
Yep.
So just to clarify things, and so for the public to understand, we are trying to bring some consistency and predictability into a situation where there are 12 and 15, 27 properties that are in different categories. So a dormant EDU is somebody who has an EDU but is not currently using it.
Correct.
All right. And a EDU reservation certificate would be one of those same people who has a dormant EDU. Okay, so please explain that to me. So we have two different categories.
That's something new.
The reserved would be somebody that, let's say they went through the planning process and got a development, but didn't tap. So they went through the process, they got a planning module and everything else, and they got 40 EDUs, but they didn't pay the tapping fees. This reservation makes them pay a reservation fee, so those 40, even though they're sitting on your sewer system that are designated towards that development, this is going to address those and say, you gotta pay us a fee for 3 years, and if you don't use them in 3 years, you lose them. Because what can happen is you have hundreds of EDUs that are designated to certain developments that haven't gone through. So the reserved are different than a dormant that has already paid the tapping fee, but aren't being used. And so while they're not putting anything in the system, they should still pay a little bit. And so their fees are paid on a quarterly basis, but at a smaller percentage.
Understood. So the dormant EDUs, in theory, eventually, most of them would disappear because they would make a decision whether or not to partake of that EDU or not, and they have 3 years to do that. So that would resolve that issue. And so also theoretically, our developers of subdivisions or even single-family homes, when they enter the planning process, they would reserve an EDU. So we have some predictability. We know who's looking to hook up. And if they do hook up, they get some kind of reimbursement on that, or that comes off the tapping fee. If they don't hook up, oh well.
Yeah, generally,
Okay.
what I found in putting the draft together was that the reservation fees, many times are with plants that are getting closer to capacity. We're actually being proactive, not that we're saying, because we know we're not close to capacity, but we're just, because this is kind of an all-inclusive kind of policy, we're creating a situation that, you know, 10, 20 years down the road, if that were to happen, that yes, there's a reservation, you know, process, as opposed to kind of the tap-in fee grab, and then they're allocating EDUs, which can cause some strife when you have you know, because we always have to keep EDUs in reserve in case people have a mandatory hookup for some, you know, so that's where you generally saw, or what I saw, where I saw these reserved EDUs in place that, you know, because honestly, realistically, with those tap-in fees, where they're just sitting out there indefinitely, which is what we know we have at least 6 of those, you know, and that's why in the draft, I suggested, because I was seeing that also, putting some kind of time frame. It's either kind of put up or shut up, so that way it's not indefinitely, and then you have a total changeover with staff, with super, and, you know, we can't remember who did what when, and, you know, you're pulling from you know, you're trying to pull from brown boxes.
Right, so you'll have documentation to cover this, and we'll have some form of planning tool to understand what the future demand will be on our sewage plant. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So, I guess one question I have about the dormant EDUs is it possible that we have situations that people purchased an EDU based on something that was told to them was gonna happen, and then it never happened? So therefore, it's not really their fault that they're not connected, it's just that the infrastructure never got close enough for them to act on it?
So I have not discovered that scenario
Okay.
where it's either, once again, as far as the dormant EDUs, it's only been EDUs that were in use at one time and are not no longer. So I've not found a situation where somebody bought an EDU and were paying the sewer charge for an EDU that they never, ever tapped into.
Mhm.
Well, the only one I'm familiar with, where was a home on Cemetery Road.
And I haven't found.
And
any-
they were not paying the monthly fee, but
But
they
they-
had paid
Right.
for an
Yes.
EDU.
But so far, that's what I found. I'm almost trying, you know, I'm really almost kind of, in a sense, kind of go file to file on that. Since I have not, pre-Zieglerville project, there is a box like the 1980 plant box that may have something like, so that's kind of what I'm diving into.
So the 6 that you found, in theory, there's infrastructure close enough they could hook up.
Oh, they're within the,
Yeah,
they
okay.
show, yes.
Got it, I understand now.
Yeah, it's separate from the previous one where we didn't have infrastructure going better yet. This is a situation where they would have the ability to tap in.
Any other questions from the board?
Could you explain this a little bit more detail, what the donated EDU is? I've read the definition here, I'm not quite.
So the donated EDU, that's,
It's number 6 or letter, A doesn't give me A is supposed to be the definition under section 1.
so the donated
7.
EDU is what we'd be calling an EDU that we used as part of an easement agreement. So in lieu of paying cash, we paid them with an asset, which would be the EDU. So that's what we're calling the donated EDU now.
Could we give, so we should only be, the township should be only able to give somebody a donated EDU if they have the ability to connect, though,
So
right?
right now, what I can say is we have that situation where the Delphi pump station is. And that's obviously, we have sewer main going down that. So that's where that situation exists. It's not somewhere where, yes, if we're on the outskirts of the township where we're not proposing public sewer, I don't know that those EDUs would have value to the,
Should,
to a resident.
under this donated one, I guess where I'm going, should we make a provision that we ensure that we don't provide a donated EDU in a circumstance where the sewer system is not currently capable of reaching the person. Because otherwise, we're going to get ourselves in, somebody could leverage this in the future.
Well, I'd have to say again, I don't know why, not that we're having many easement conversations, or should I say, easement conversations where you have the value of what our current tap-in fee is. I mean, when this was done, you know, the tap-in fee was $1,500. So, we're not generally negotiating, with situations where we need that much easement acreage or where you kind of even get to that value. So I would think if we don't have sewer close by, or there's no proposed sewer through our Act 537 plan, I'm not sure why someone would even want to ask us about that, where we may be trying to get an easement for something. It kind of, generally it's going to go hand in hand, I think, if, much like we had done up on, as part of the sewer extension project, we had the same situation where as part of that easement agreement, it was, so that would be, in this case, that would have been a donated EDU. Now that they would be using that, but that's that situation where, you've got sewer right there. I think that might be more kind of overkill, I guess, to add that kind of provision, because I would think even as a township, we wouldn't want that, because honestly, you can't transfer these, someone can't, part of the goal is also is that, you can't sell these to other property owners kind of thing. You can't, there's not like a secondary market for this.
I just know never is a long time. So, you can think something will never occur, but, just thinking out loud, but, okay.
So what are the next steps then?
The next step would be is, if the board's comfortable with the revisions we have in place, would then be at some point to put it up for adoption. I had done a resolution. I would just have to tweak the resolution and then adopt that and adopt the policy.
So is the board satisfied with this, or do we need one more meeting to discuss?
So I think we need to, there's a lot of blanks in here as far as fees and whatever it is.
Yes.
So we definitely need to go through that and just, reading through and pointing some things out just to kind of keep the conversation going. In section 4 around dormant EDUs, there is a section that at any time the landowner owning a parcel, lot, or unit with a dormant EDU may return it to the township. Upon the return of the dormant EDU, the township shall refund the tapping fee paid for such EDU minus a 10% fee. So to Jason, I guess the question is, for the 9, or maybe it's 15 that have been paid for, that we think they've been paid for, do we know what they paid for them?
I can't say for the 9, but I can say for the 6.
Okay.
That I've got physical proof. That's part of,
We can get close.
yeah, with the 9, that's part of my trying to find when the transaction occurred, and that I can prove,
Okay.
what was.
So before we do anything, I want to make sure that we can say, before something going in place, we have what we believe is the best faith, what they paid for it. And-
Which I agree with, because honestly, I don't want to have to rely on people providing us paperwork,
Yeah,
or just the word, kind of their word.
okay. And then for all of the, for the dormant ones specifically, I got the sections confused, but is there, once we put this in place, is there a certain amount of time, years, until they cannot be acted upon? Like they just go away?
I think it was 3 years.
Same as the other.
So that would have been one of the things that I know my draft kind of had a blank. So that's determining whether or not you want to put a time limit on it. I saw that in many of the policies. That's one of the things that you guys really need to make a decision. If you don't think it's an issue now, I don't know that you necessarily need to put a time limit on it if you don't feel. I mean, from our standpoint, the important part is having, as you just pointed out, the documentation so that you know, we know what was paid originally, and we've got it noted somewhere. But yeah, and the whole point of that was to try to maybe create some sense of urgency that, once again, you don't have many years go by.
Okay. And maybe to Colby or, Peter at some point, but as far as a subdivision or reverse subdivision for the dormant, or for probably any of these, is that assumed in here, is that covered in here? Someone has two parcels and they want to combine to one and combine EDUs, or is that getting too complicated?
I don't think that is what this is for. That would be somebody that is using two EDUs and then saying, hey, will you buy one back? And that's something that you can do, but that's not a policy. You can sit there and say, no, we don't want to buy it back. But you may be in a position to say, yes, we want to buy it back. But if they do that, then the property is going to remain a single-family home. And that may be something that you want to do, but I would take that by a case-to-case basis. This is not what this is designed for. This is designed for ones that have either been paid for and tapped in but are not being used, that were donated and there's some agreement that is in place, or somebody is coming in and reserving a certain amount and getting you a fee and saying, hey, you only got a certain amount of time to either return them, to you pay them off and pay the full tapping fees, or I think that's it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically, we have a 3-year time limit. The 3 years goes by, they return the EDU, but then another year goes by and they're like, oh, I want to build now. They can still come back and get an EDU as long as there's capacity, right?
And they would pay
They'd be paying the current tap-in fee.
Okay.
I thought there was something it was saying they had to wait a period of time. I thought I read that
Yeah, I think it was
in here
2 years. I
somewhere.
think you're right. Yeah, there was a waiting period.
Suspension.
Section 4, Part B, is that it?
Is there a way, I'm not ready to push this forward, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of things that I need to digest a little bit, but it would be nice,
it is a 2-year, you're right.
yeah, to have a, clean,
Okay.
right, because this is, at least for me, there's so many things crossed out and in different colors.
Yeah, there are a lot of different colors.
I'm not that
4.
advanced.
Well, I would agree, which is why I gave you guys hard copy, color copy.
Yeah.
Because I can joke about Peter's red pen, but obviously a lot of stuff.
Green
changed.
pen, blue pen.
So yeah, I can provide you guys a clean copy, which would probably make the reading easier.
And, if there is time, it would be helpful just to, you could summarize in like 1 page or something. Yeah.
Maybe like
3
a chart.
columns, this is.
Yeah, a chart would be great.
Yeah, like a chart,
Okay.
just sort of the 10,000-foot view.
Yeah. And I know it says that the reservation fee would not be more than 25% of the tap-in fee, but what would be reasonable? $100 a year?
I was
$200
seeing-
a year?
Yeah, I was seeing straight fees between 100, 200. They generally were not, kind of shooting for the sun and stars, so to speak, when it came to the fees. It was enough to keep someone interested that, but it was not exorbitant that
Okay.
it was causing an undue burden, I guess.
It's funny, I remember 20 more years ago, I put my name in for a slip up at Nakamixon State Park. It cost nothing, and I was like 700th on the list. And 1 year, they charged $5 to stay on that list,
Yeah.
and I got that slip. It's all those names that, people just put their names on the list.
So would we like to revisit this at our next work session, or do you want to go further out than that, or just play it by ear?
Next work session's
Yeah, that's
fine.
fine.
Next work session.
Are you,
Yeah, that's
going to
fine.
have any more data to share with us?
That's my goal.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm just discovering, I don't call it a gold mine, but it's I'm finding the information that I was actually looking for, just as far as concrete, because once again, we don't seem to have any easement paperwork or anything with our property files currently. And I guess we didn't start property files till like '06, '07 or something like that is what I'm told, so I think that's why it's been boxed like it was, so that's part of the, going through the.
So you're saying easement agreements that were done prior to 2006, we don't have that?
They're in a they're basically, like, right now, they're in this they're in the, like, the Zieglerville project box,
I see.
kind of thing, so.
So they need to be,
Uh,
somehow
we're-
find their way into the property
That's-
holders.
That would be the goal, is that, yeah, from property to property, so that way,
Right.
well, one, it kind of helps, it can help educate people that they've got an easement if they don't,
Right.
they're not looking at their deed, or, but also help us. So this would be one of those things where we'll probably have it in two places in our shared drive, because I do want, this is part of a specific project, but.
But my understanding is whatever we've done with the donated EDUs, or whatever we're talking about doing here, is not going to affect whatever agreements the township has made or understandings the township had when they gave those easements.
No, that was, the thought was that, not to put them on, not to put them on notice, because that was something negotiated, and we thought that was a fair thing.
Fair enough, all right. Double checking.
Okay, so we'll revisit this. We'll look at a clean copy and some kind of a summary of the different options. All right, next item is Arcadia Station. Is that you, Carol? The crosswalk discussion?
All right, so we started a discussion about this at the previous meeting. And what I'm presenting to the board is two options. So the Zieglerville Road slope along the lane in the vicinity of Schwenk Road is about an 8% slope. And almost a year ago, the developer's contractor put in a crosswalk. And the crosswalk is at a much flatter slope than 8%. And it immediately became apparent that it had an impact on cars driving Zieglerville Road. And so we've talked about this a bit. But what's before you tonight is a memorandum from a professional traffic engineer with Benoni. And in summary, that memorandum is telling us we can go one of two ways. We can take out the crosswalk that was put in, restore the grade to about where the road used to be, a steeper grade, and put a crosswalk back in that just has a steep cross slope to it. And that would be
8%?
yes. So that would be a deviation from ADA policy where you want a lesser cross slope on a crosswalk, but it would be an acceptable thing to do in a case where a road is that steeply sloped. Alternatively, since that crosswalk has been in, I've heard a lot of people say, hey, we like the traffic calming effect it's having out there. So what this memo from the professional traffic engineer at Benoni does is justifies or supports keeping that crosswalk in the condition it is today by adding signage and markings to make it more obvious that it's a raised crosswalk and better alerting traffic to the fact that they need to slow down for that crosswalk. And that would leave the crosswalk in place with the addition of pavement markings and signage. Either option is, to me, a reasonable option, and it's really a question of what the community finds to be the most desirable of those two solutions.
Carol, with respect to the second solution where we leverage it as traffic calming, would it be adjusted so that where the crosswalk is, there would be no difference, adjustment? Right now, isn't there a slight drop off the curb and the two corners? You're going to go corner to corner, right? directly across the street?
She's saying it's gonna stay the same right
Stay
now.
the same
It
way
won't
it is
change.
today and just be marked better so that traffic is better alerted to the
Okay.
changes.
Yeah, because normally would they not, in most circumstances, wouldn't they actually either lower the curbs on the two corners or raise the surface of the crosswalk so they'd be, there wouldn't be a drop off if somebody's trying to move across there with a wheelchair or something?
So right now, it is graded so that when you come off the accessible ramp, if you were to be in a wheelchair, you've got the leveling area that you need
Okay.
to make that accessible today.
Which is 2%, no
Okay.
more than 2% slope.
So when you come down the ramp on either side, you have the leveling area at the ramp that's required for
Okay.
accessibility. So that, in the condition we have today, we have that leveling area. So again, the option 2 is to put in more pavement markings and more signage to alert motorists and maintain the traffic calming feature that you've got out there today.
You know, my opinion on it is, given the fact that it's highly likely that that area will be accessed as a park by the people in the condominium complexes, and maybe even Snoopy Lane, because it's a big, flat, open field. So to leave it as a traffic calming solution would mitigate other potential risks as well. So that's my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think that having the speed hump without having the warning, that's currently an issue. And what I hear from residents is, we need a warning. We need someone to tell us this is coming. And honestly, if people go over that and they're concerned about their cars, they're driving too fast. So the warning, I think, will, and we have our police officer here, so the warning will solve that. I mean, if you're going over what, 20, 25 over a speed hump, that's too fast. And that's the posted speed. So I'm all in favor of putting the markings in, because people need to know that it's coming.
Can you do a screen share of that guy? You know which one, it's the last page of that memo.
Yeah, it has a signage.
Yeah.
That's it.
And if we decide to go with the option to leave it and put in the signage, what would be the time frame for that?
I don't have a specific commitment, but I would expect that would be relatively soon because pavement markings need to go down before it gets much colder.
Yes,
And
okay.
the developer is working towards his closeout. So this solution, thank you for putting that up on the screen. This solution includes the pavement markings, which you see below the colored map of an image of a pedestrian and the words ahead. And then on the edges of the road, say raised pedestrian crossing, that is not there today. They're proposing an advisory speed of 15 miles per hour for the crosswalk. And then I believe we have those signs similar to those crossing signs already in place. But the advanced markings on the pavement and the raised pedestrian crossing ahead 15 mile per hour, those would be the additions here to further alert people.
Now, will there be any kind of markings on the raised portion, like striping?
There are today.
Okay.
Attaching today to identify that crosswalk.
Have I guess the question for Jason or Carol, Public Works, have they weighed in on any of this?
I can answer that.
Okay.
I did speak on multiple occasions. I spoke with your roadmaster about this. Aside from a slight concern about how the plowing is going to go over it, he was in agreement with the idea that it could go one way or the other, and he will work on this either way. So I did talk to Tony.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion from the board?
Any other points? Eventually we'll have to name that park, right? No, I have nothing.
If you would go the other way, I would split it, 4 and 4. 4% on the crosswalk and 4% definitely on the other side. If you went the other way to take it out.
Yeah, if we take it out, there's,
That's a lot, 8%'s a lot.
yeah, but to catch that 4% and keep the speed limit where it is, you'd have to go quite far up and down the road. And that would be quite a challenge, with the intersection there as well. That's what I first asked the traffic engineer to look at. And when we looked at the geometry, we'd be going hundreds of feet up and down the road and trying to figure out how to interact with Schwenk Road and Goshen Road on the other side to make that work. So it really was a challenge. I mean, that, honestly, that was my idea initially. That's where I wanted to see it go. But you really have to chase it quite a way up and down. So they really came down to these two options. If you take it back to the slope that it was before and then struggle a little bit to make it work with the ramps, or maintain the traffic calming feature that we have today.
If you got that on 2% slope now from the intersection, downhill, or do you have it uphill? You have it downhill on a 2%. You're going 2 more percent. So that's going to take the 6% out on the bottom side.
Yeah, in places that cross slope is closer to 4 today.
So that's not what nobody said.
You're talking about it's 4% across the crosswalk?
Yeah. So
As
it would
opposed
slope-
to 2%. What is it now?
So at the edges of the curb line on either side, it's at the 2%, it's required. But as you're going across Zieglerville Road, it does steepen to 4%.
Okay.
And then comes back to 2% again with the curb line. That's what's happening out there today with some variability through it. And again, to keep it at 2%, you're gonna have to chase way up and down the road. And even at the 4% it's at today, you'd have to chase up and down the road to make those grades, and it's gonna be a challenge to make that work with the intersection that's there today and the curb lines that are already in place. So having looked at that and found challenges to that, we've come to this place
Okay.
today that we could either return the slope to what it was, as a very steep cross slope to that crosswalk, and just level it at each curb side, or keep the feature as it is today and properly sign it with a sign off from the professional traffic engineer from Pinoni, that it meets criteria, and keep it as a traffic calming feature.
So follow-up question, Carol. Do we run and maybe this is for Colby as well, do we run afoul of any of the ADA compliance rules by having it move from a 2%? You said it's perfect, you go off the, not really a curb, you kind of level off the road onto a 2% platform, area, and then it moves to a 4% tilt. Is there any issues with ADA compliance by having such a road?
So with accessible ramps and walkways, there's something called a TIF, a technically infeasible form, and it's used for situations like this where the existing field conditions prevent you from fully complying with the goals, with the target slopes and criteria of the accessibility guidance. But you've improved the situation as best you can in the existing situation. So this would be a TIF, and we'd file it accordingly in the township records and in Miami.
Okay, and that's an automatic given as long as you can prove that you couldn't comply?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, I did it on Orville Road, 309.
all right.
So there's no middle ground, like you can't take away some of it?
We're sort of in an either or at this point.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it is serving its purpose. It is slowing the traffic down. Sorry. What's the consensus? Leave it as is and add the signage to warn people, or remove it and then not have the traffic calming?
It seems the traffic calming is the advantage here.
Yeah,
I think we sign it and call it.
yeah, I would, yeah, that's, I still believe that's the best thing to do here.
Yeah, there are a lot of kids living on both sides of that street.
Yeah, I drove it one more time tonight coming in just to see whether I was going to have an epiphany.
Did you slow down?
I did slow down, yes.
There you go.
Oh.
So is the consensus that it's effective and we should keep it with adding the signage?
Do we have to vote on that, or make a
Do we need to vote or just have a consensus?
We do have a hand raised as well.
Well, is the board finished with their discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, Brian Hill, 11 Zieglerville Road. As mentioned just most recently, is that this, yes, as much as it is a bit of an annoyance, it is for serving a purpose to slow traffic down. I would love to see 2 more of these installed, one on my side of the Zieglerville Road and one on Spring Mount or on Main Street. These have the capacity to slow down traffic without having to place a stop sign. As you all know, the traffic speeds along Zieglerville and Main Street are absolutely ridiculous, and fortunately we have not had someone injured and or killed because of that. But obviously we're not focused on that. We're focused on this crosswalk, and I think it does serve its purpose of allowing people to cross the street appropriately and slowing traffic down. So I would keep it as it is.
Thank you. So do we need to vote on this or just have consensus?
I believe we were just looking for guidance.
Excuse me, Mara.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Mara, this is Bob Burns. I agree with the traffic calming portion of what we have there. I'm a little concerned since Zieglerville was slated to be paved at one point in time and will be again as to what is going to happen when we have to pave it later and how that's going to work into the equation. Very familiar with Pannoni. They're great people. They know their stuff. I agree that, if they're going to put their name on it, that's great. So, whether or not you have to decide tonight, obviously I've been asking you guys to also look at the crosswalk as far as, adding some kind of flashing lights. I don't think the word bump, I think they're calling them hump now, so obviously that signage would probably change, and there would probably be more of it in better areas. The other thing to keep in mind is that, when this plan was sent in back in the day, it was looked at, it was reviewed at by the planning commission and by our engineer, and it was approved. It was an approved plan, so it should work, but it's not working. So if it's something we have to look at in the future, when these kind of situations come up, here again, we need to learn by our mistakes from the past. So, couldn't be in person tonight, but I'm here listening. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. So guidance, my vote is uses traffic calming and put in the signage. I think Terry,
we're-
you agree?
Yep, I agree.
Terry?
If that's what you want to do, I'll go with it. I'd like to look at it a little more, but,
You want me to?
I wish I would have known it was the 4%. I didn't have all the information
Yeah.
that was true about it, and that makes me mad.
Well, can we kick it till next week? Would that be enough time for you to think about it, Terry?
If we do for 1 week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no
I
problem.
mean, I value your opinion because this is your business,
Yeah.
you know, so,
I mean, you're talking, it would have to be a TIF now,
yeah.
so it should have been, you know, so that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'm okay. Let's wait a week. Sonny,
Is that all right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so we'll revisit this next week. Okay. Police pension 2024 MMO.
So this is an annual requirement that needs to be authorized and accepted by the board at a public meeting before September 30th. Since I got this between our general meeting and this meeting, that's why it's on this agenda. Based on the recent pension valuation, the plan is actually funded at over 129.4%. This puts the plan in an outstanding position. What's also helpful is our state aid for the pension plan has covered 59.5% of the police MMO since the 2018, with general fund covering the remaining 40.5%. So based on this year's estimated payroll and the 2023 valuation, the 2024 non-uniform MMO will be $48,592.
And for the public, MMO stands for Minimum Municipal Obligation. So this is a yearly requirement.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any questions or discussion from the board?
Yeah, so we have to approve it by this week, the end of this week, but we don't pay it until
Next year.
the first of the year. Okay.
Yeah, we actually have the 2023 MMO will be due. We're getting this, I think we've got this state aid coming this week. So then that'll get paid out for this year. So yeah, you're always working for the next year, which is why you're doing the estimated payroll. I provided that, I think, back in July or August. So you do the estimated payroll.
Okay.
Once again, the positive is we're well funded, so we don't have to do makeup money, which is what I had to do at my previous stop, which can be a little.
Okay. So just have to remind everyone when the check comes through in 3 months, why they're seeing it for a number, because we're only gonna pay it January.
No, the MMO gets paid, the MMO is gonna get paid pretty much as soon as we get our, that check will be going out in October probably.
Okay, so on the memo, it says we recommend that you do not pay this MMO until after January 1st.
Correct.
Is that something different?
No, realistically, we could make the payment at the beginning of the year.
That's fine. Yeah.
I've always waited till we get the state aid,
Yep.
just kind of as that, okay, we got the state aid, let's pay the MMO. I have previously paid it earlier because it was mostly was general fund money, but I think I waited the summer. Yeah, you're normally not making big payments like that at the beginning of the year, but yes, you're right. As long as it's not in this calendar year, we would be fine.
I have no question.
So the motion would be to accept the 2024 MMO, which is Minimum Municipal Obligation, as presented by PSAT's Trustees, Insurance and Retirement Services, and authorize the manager as pension administrator to sign the MMO for the police pension plan. Do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
All right, and I will second it. So Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Hexter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Next up, we have a resolution to appoint Sergeant Cass as our officer in charge, although I see he already has a sign that says officer in charge.
So, as the board may recall, the board did appoint him at the last meeting. This is the, let's say, the official documentation for that appointment. As was noted, we did have him sign an agreement, which I did attach to you, or I should say, an offer letter. So we kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit, but this is kind of button it up, and this would be the resolution. So I have tweaked it from the resolution that I had drafted for the last meeting, since he was appointed at the September 5th meeting.
So the resolution is to appoint Sergeant Brian Cass, officer in charge of the Lower Frederick Township Police Department.
Yes.
Okay. Would someone like to make that motion?
Dan Orff will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So we have Supervisor Orff made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And this, just as an add, this is resolution 2023-R-20.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize.
Resolution, do we need to start over? Lawyer? No? Okay.
Aye.
R-20?
Skip a.
Okay. And this is effective until March 6th.
Yes, I use the
2024.
effective date as what would be Chief Maxey's official last name.
Okay, well, that was easy. Next one is also the police, a firearm and taser purchase authorization.
Okay, not wasting any time in the seat. Sergeant Cass, we've had discussions about this previous, the situation with our firearms and tasers. As the board, I have made the board aware, we've been going through the hiring process. We do have a candidate that we're going through the background checks so at this time, we do not have a firearm to issue to this officer, nor do we have a taser. So, and in both cases, the firearms and the tasers that we do currently have been discontinued. So, parts and repair is becoming an issue. And so, we do have a sense of urgency with this as opposed to kind of waiting for next year's budget cycle. So that's why it's in front of you tonight. So in the case of the firearms, we currently have 4 handguns used for duty patrol officers. This would not allow us to have one available for the patrol officer currently going through the process of being hired. The current model of Sig Sauer model 227 was discontinued in 2019, which will make parts harder to get moving forward. What is being proposed would be purchasing 8 Glock Model 21 handguns at $469 per gun, 8 holsters at $136.83 per holster, and 8 weapon light systems at $124.22 per system, for that total of $5,840.41. That being said, we have a trade-in value for our current weapons, firearms, totaling $1,750, so the total cost to the township would actually be $4,090.41. As to the tasers, we're in the same situation for the tasers. We currently only have 4 tasers in service. The current Taser X26Ps were discontinued in 2021. We do not have the ability to get parts. Apparently, taser technology has changed and now actually includes software. So the package that Sergeant Cass has recommended will become a monthly expense, much like a lease. And it would be for a 60-month period, and is called the Taser Certification Plan, which would costing for 7 each taser units, $65 per month, for a total of $450 per month. If you have any questions, Sergeant Cass is here as present too.
I have a question. So we have 5 officers, and you're proposing 8 handguns and 7 tasers. Why not, I mean, I'm just curious about the number, but also why are they not the same of each?
So the handguns are, to have 2 if there's any equipment issues. We could send them back, have another handgun to replace the duty officer. Also, God forbid the situation presents itself where a handgun needs to be taken for evidence that, officer discharges the weapon, that handgun is taken as evidence through any kind of court proceedings, and then with that weapon being taken as evidence, another handgun can be replaced and given back to that officer. Even if that officer is cleared and is able to go back to duty without having that replacement gun, he would be able to go out on the street.
Right, so I understand why you need extra, but why 8 of the handgun and 7 of the tasers? Why not the same number of both?
that might have been, it should be 8 of the tasers as well. It would be the same principle with the tasers. That might have been a typo on my part.
So 3 extra,
Correct.
okay.
It says 7 taser units for 7 users. Looks like our math's not right, too.
I was gonna say 7 times 65. right?
It can't be small.
Just,
Let's do the math right. So as far as the firearms, the math works on the firearms. And we understand we have 6 currently, or I should, yeah, we have 5 in use currently. We would have 6 with the incoming officer. Tasers, we need to redo our math. No, I didn't check this.
Well,
Should know better.
let me ask a question with the tasers. I mean,
About 20.
so since it's a lease thing, if for some reason one of them is not functioning right, they just send a new one to replace it, right?
So we would, if there was any issue with the taser that we would go to the lease program, we would have a representative that we would send back.
Right.
They would do the review, and then if it's something that would not be able to be replaced, they would, through the warranty, it should be issued, we would be issued a new model of that
Okay.
same taser 7, but a new unit, so it'd be operating properly.
Okay. How about like down the road when, you know, there's a new, maybe Taser 8, does this cover us, or do we have to enter in a new contract?
So that's with the packet, it's a 5-year for the 60-month. This should be, at the end of that 60 months, I'm sure the technology will be changed,
Yeah.
where everything, you know, could be Taser 10 or whatever they
Yeah.
decide to call it at that point. But the 60-month, 5-year plan we should have no issues until we hit that 60 months. And
Okay.
then as we get close to that 60 months, then we would have to reevaluate and see what's available, what the costs are, and what would be best for the department of the township at that point.
so sort of along the same lines, if there, you say these now have software inside of them. So if there was some kind of software upgrade, they all had to go
So
through.
my understanding, speaking to other agencies and other taser trainers, the software, anytime there's kind of like an iPhone, when
Right.
there's a software update, it's either done through like a cloud-based system,
Right.
or they send us the software that we download onto our computer, which then downloads into the software program.
Okay, that's
Yeah, it
good.
seems to be very similar to like our copier lease, which, you know, we're getting every updates, it's taking care of the maintenance, so it's kind of all encompassing. You know, we can't stress enough, there's very limited as far as the outfits that do this. It seems they've seen monopolized the market, corner of the market, which we've seen in other facets of emergency services. You know, I know the fire companies are dealing with that with trucks, there's like one manufacturer anymore, so we don't have many options.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is is $65 a month per unit the correct price for one taser? Is that correct?
Yeah, that was in
So
their
it'd be
literature.
$520 per
That is
month
correct, okay.
If you in fact want 8.
So 8 would be $520.
Yes, I apologize for the typo, it would be 8.
That's all right. Are you looking for a vote tonight?
We wouldn't necessarily, we don't have quite the sense of urgency on this order, on these orders. If the board would like more time to consider, I don't know that's gonna change, our situation's not gonna change.
I'm seeing 2 no's. What do you,
If I could just add, if the board sees fit to make a vote, that can begin the process, because it's something that is not where I can pick up the phone tomorrow and make a call.
Right.
They have to get the order and start the processing. But again, I'll leave that to your discretion as you see fit.
okay, I don't see any reason to wait either.
I just have one more question, and this is just for my own etiquette. So I was looking at the list of the weapons that we have now, and there's a duty weapon and a non-duty weapon. What's the,
So, are you talking under the firearms?
yeah, what we currently,
So I cannot speak to how the township or the department came into those weapons. My best guess is that for other things that were going on prior to when I came on board with the township, those weapons might have been purchased for special duties that were
Okay.
occurring. But we have those in our possession now, and that's why we're able to trade those back as well, with a
But-
little bit of a discount.
But everything that we're gonna be buying will be categorized as a duty weapon?
Correct. Everything that we would be
Okay.
purchasing would be duty, inventory logs, serial numbers, and it'll be, everything will be universal for duty.
Got it.
No, there's no, I see no reason to wait on doing this.
You okay voting tonight, Terry?
Harry, you all right with
You
moving?
okay voting
Yes.
tonight? Okay. Then, would someone like to make the motion to authorize the purchase of new firearms? Now, we're going to include the tasers in this?
I had two separate motions to keep it clean.
Can we do it in one? Is that okay?
You certainly could.
So that would be to authorize the purchase of new firearms at a total cost of $4,090.41 from Whitmore Public Safety Group, and authorize the township manager to sign the quote. And then the second motion would be, and to authorize the purchase, the lease, the 60-year lease of 8 taser units for a cost of $520 per month. And I guess also to authorize you to sign the quote. Is that,
Just 60 months instead of 60 years.
did I say 60 years?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
That's quite a bargain.
Wow, yeah, okay. Let's modify that to say 60 months. Wow. Thinking ahead here, huh?
Chuck Yeiser will make the motion as described by our chair. Got that?
And correct it, yeah, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks. We have Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. All right, next one is also police. Big night for the police.
This vehicle was presented to the board back in May, along with the other SUV the board ultimately authorized to purchase. As you may recall, part of the discussion was purchasing a police vehicle in the future that will allow for operations during flooding or other emergencies. We have more of an urgent need for the SUV, so that was the vehicle that the board authorized us to order. As of 9/22, factors out of our control have continued to delay the arrival of this SUV, and now we're expecting it in late winter, early spring. Essentially, there's a worker strike at the factory, so our vehicle has not been built, and there's no end in sight when it may be built. This police responder vehicle became available from a canceled order through CUC 33. So we are asking the board to consider this purchase now, since it would add another viable new vehicle to the fleet, and the fact that we can get it now. So I have listed the fleet. As you can see, it's been my experience, and it's become the standard for rural PDs, that the useful life of police vehicles is normally 5 years when they're used regularly for patrol. Our department is fortunate to have lower miles on our vehicles, but they are used hard due to the large volume of service calls the PD does on a monthly basis. We've also had a few large repairs this year on our current fleet. The SUV we have on order would be replacing the 2013 Tahoe, already 10 years old. This vehicle would be technically replacing the 2014 Police Interceptor SUV or the 2015 Police Interceptor sedan because of the higher mileage. Along with the vehicle in order, we would have been proposing another vehicle purchase for next year. So since the board had authorized purchase of the SUV we expecting it this year, this would hit this year, and then we would budget appropriately for the vehicle that we already have on order. This would also, as I said, get our fleet more in a situation as far as a regular rotation, since it looks like we've been kind of pushing that off a little bit. Like I said, we have had a few I think it's been on multiple vehicles.
Yes, several of the vehicles have had some large dollar value repairs.
There's something about the 5 year, I don't know what it is, it just seems to happen. Like I said, we have lower mileage, but it's harder, the equipment's getting used harder, because it's not just driving around.
So would we then sell one of our older vehicles when we get the new one?
I think that's
Is that
what
a
we
yes?
could be looking at.
Okay,
Basically, at some point, basically present to the board, you know, I know we've got the one that's on the back lot, I think that was given to us.
That was, my understanding of the vehicle that's still parked was a donation from
Yeah.
I guess the ambulance company many, many years ago, and that is very unsafe. I mean, the roof is falling in on it, so.
So we could attempt to try to see what we can get on it, you know, kind of as is, and then, yes, we could look at potentially one of the other fleet. The goal is to try to have a viable additional vehicle available. If a vehicle gets in an accident, you know, so where we're not getting forced to double up our officers in one vehicle and still kind of cover the township as they've been doing.
And also in the normal maintenance, we would have that one vehicle that would be an alternate vehicle. That way, we're able to, not, as Jason said, not double up, so one officer can be handling one incident, another officer's still available. We're not, so to speak, handcuffed and are limited in what we can and can't do.
Right, but do we have all 5 officers on duty at the same time?
We do not. They work shifts, morning shifts, and then the afternoon, evening shifts.
So do we ever have all 5 vehicles in use at the same time?
On very rare occasions or special events. It
Okay.
also depends too, if there's that going to court, county courts, other trainings.
Or
So
service.
it kind of scheduled, it's tentative depending upon the schedule and what the needs are going on in the township.
Okay.
It's not happened often. I threw it out there just because it has happened to us when I think it was when one of the vehicles was in for repair. Unexpected, we couldn't plan for it.
So is the vehicle you described that's sitting in the back with the roof coming in, is that on the list here? Is that the top?
I don't think they even recognize that as part of the fleet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so, that hasn't even been in the rotation for, I believe, 4 years, maybe longer. That hasn't even been used.
Yeah, I think we got it in 2020, because I was on the board when that was donated to us.
Yeah, that
Maybe
was
it's never
prior
been
to
used.
my time.
Yeah. I remember accepting the donation. We voted on it. It was probably the first year. Okay, so that's not on the list.
Correct,
Got
because the vehicles that I gave to Jason were the vehicles that we're using now, that are in the rotation being used by the officers currently.
So just for those people who are listening or not seeing what we see, we have a 2015 Police Interceptor with 96,000 miles, a 2014 Police Interceptor with 68,000 miles, a 2013 Chevy Tahoe with 73,000 miles, and then 2 newer vehicles, a 2018 Police Interceptor with 43,000 and a 2021 Police Interceptor with 23,000. So we have some older vehicles in the fleet.
So just to help me out here, you're indicating that the vehicle you're looking to get is a F-150 police responder truck.
Correct.
Now, I'm assuming all the SUVs have the ability to have, okay, so I'm just curious, how's the seating work in there?
So the SUVs are all-wheel drive vehicles. That's the standard package.
Right.
The truck will have a true four-wheel drive capability. Four-wheel drive capability, heavy snow allows us to get through because all-wheel drive is great, but heavy, deep snow, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. Also, with the four-wheel drive in the truck, we have a lot of open space area. God forbid something happens, we can get the truck in there with EMTs or fire company. They can pile into the bed of the truck, get them in there, get the patient, victims, bring them out from deep in the woods, bring them out to the next level of care. The same thing with flooding. We all know that flooding is prevalent.
Right.
Put fire company in to get into places where people that need to get evacuated, we can put them in the bed. That's
So this would be good in high water?
high water, heavy snow,
Okay.
other.
And does it have a second set of seats if you needed to take?
So how it is described in the spec sheet is the 2 front seats and then a third seat, so it'll be 1 cage. So if we had to put an officer and medics or firefighters, they would be able to fit in there even with their gear, and there would still be the prisoner transport area in the back in the second row seating. plus the ability of the truck and piling people in the truck.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my main question, where did the prisoners go?
But there's still the prisoner transport,
Okay,
secure area.
okay. I mean, with the flooding we're getting, it makes good sense to have something that would be high would pay for.
So, again, just to clarify, this vehicle is available.
So this vehicle,
But the other one that we had ordered before, that we thought we were going to get by
so
now,
it's been
is
a
not
back-
available.
So it's been a back and forth. When you initially approved the initial order, they told us late September, early October. Beginning of September, I reached out to see if they could give us a better date, a tentative date of when we would be taking possession of it. At that time, the salesperson at the dealership said he would get back to me. He reached out to Ford. It was scheduled to be built, but was not built. Then with the auto strike, that date is to be determined. They can't provide us any date. He then, realizing the situation that we were in with the order that has been delayed, this truck was ordered by another department. That order was canceled. This vehicle currently is on the lot at the dealership as we speak. There's other interest in it, so he was willing to, he knew that we were having a meeting tonight, so he was willing to give us till tomorrow for a decision to be made, just because of the need of other agencies, but we have priority choice on it. If you guys decide to go that.
Okay, thank you.
So if we accept this, we then cancel our Explorer order for the other vehicle that we thought we were gonna get?
No, this would be in addition to the other vehicle that was already pre-approved.
So we're,
Yeah,
as
okay.
as I understand it, we're buying next year's vehicle now, and we're buying this year's vehicle next year.
Yes.
There you
Does
go.
that sound good?
And then,
There's lots of, it's easy.
and then the goal is the next vehicle would be at least 2 years out. The goal is to get some, spreading out their vehicle requests, so you're not getting one every year, would be the general goal. But that's what you'll see this upcoming budget cycle.
And also to put the money in the budget, so we have the money there.
Yes.
So the amount that I'm looking at here is 63,336,
Yes, sir.
and that's,
Before lettering.
I was gonna say, what else, what needs to happen after that? The lettering?
So this, the 63,336,
Yep.
that is outfitted, vehicle purchase and outfitted with all the equipment. The only additional cost would be the lettering, and I've been working with two different companies to get a price, and I don't have that. They haven't gotten back to me yet with their quote.
But it includes everything that,
It is,
all the mods that the police department needs, that
Correct.
a regular citizen wouldn't have, but you would.
and if there was some reason for a delay for the lettering, that truck would be able to go out on the street in a patrol capacity just as an unmarked until we got it
Okay.
lettered.
Okay.
So day one, if the need arises, it would be able to go out on patrol.
Got you.
Okay, is the board ready to vote?
Yeah.
Yes?
You ready to vote?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the motion is to authorize the purchase of 2023 police vehicle from COC 23 in the amount of $63,336, and further authorize the township manager to sign any paperwork necessary to complete the purchase.
And that would be an F-150, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
You said a vehicle, so
Yeah, that's what I put.
make sure it's an F-150.
Yeah, it's on the quote, it says F-150 police responders,
Yep.
and then a co-star's number.
I was trying to get away from the mouthful that's the police interceptor responder on it.
It's the F-150 police responder is the proper how it's classified at the dealership.
So.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I'll make the motion as described by the chairperson.
Someone like to make the second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Orff made the motion. Supervisor Byrd, I'm sorry.
Bird.
We're going to have the Bird down presentation soon, too. Supervisor Byrd made the second for the purchase of the F-150 police responder truck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, I think we're done with all of our police issues for the evening. Last, thank you.
Yes, sir, officer in charge.
Thank you. So last item is 204 Zieglerville Road.
Okay, so this was property, the board may recall, there was a fire in 2020. There were, there was some oil, I think an oil tank. There were a few things going on with the property that required DEP to be involved. DEP has since gave their blessing that there's no current content with what was the issue at the time. I think understanding the property and what may exist in other parts of the property, there's some concern about what may or may not exist on the property. The situation we're in is this has been gone through the process, and this was actually on the most recent upset sale list, which is for taxes not, real estate taxes not paid. From last week, it actually was continued. It is now slated for the December 7th continued upset sale. I did get that confirmation from the County Board of Assessments. So the concern is what ability do we have to ensure that whoever purchased the property takes care of the property in a manner that makes it safe and doesn't cause further environmental damage. What I can say we have in place, there was it appears there was a notice of violation that was written by the township, LTL and the township, on September 4th, 2020, which is still open because Mr. Honkel was never able to complete it. This was for weeds, motor vehicles, the exterior structure of the house, rubbish, garbage, plumbing systems, fixtures, water system, sanitary drainage system, electrical facilities. So essentially, you would need to submit permits to rebuild a home. It's not currently habitable. And actually, I don't know, based on the pictures, it was in pretty sad shape after the fire. So the part of the current open violation, whoever purchased this property would basically inherit this notice of violation. That's something that's going to kind of stay with the property. We don't have a lot of mechanisms as far as trying to stay out ahead of property situations, because we're not generally with our current UNO process. We don't get on the property, for instance. We don't do inspections. We've got to just stay on top of this, understanding when the upset sale, and then whoever ends up doing the purchasing, this is one of those things we just try to ensure that something just doesn't pop up in the meantime and that the property gets cleaned up properly.
So is the purpose of this to ensure there's proper disclosure to the purchaser of the prior situation on that property? And to protect the township after the fact?
What I am aware of is the Board of Assessment actually asked us for the documentation regarding the fire, so we had sent them the DEP reports, the pictures. So because the county the upset sales through the county, I believe they were providing that documentation. He didn't say what they were using it for, but because there was no demo permit pulled for this, because the previous owner passed away before, so it kind of was an open-ended situation as far as the Board of Assessment. So that was part of the remedy, but the county has been provided what we had as far as the shape of the house and then what DEP had. So I don't know what will get relayed to the property owner. I've not participated, or I understand there's a list of bidders, and so I don't know what will actually get to whoever purchases the property.
But we've done our job in providing all the information.
We've done what they've asked us to do,
Okay.
and then that would be one of those things, when the property's sold, we're just gonna have to try to find out as soon as possible and kind of make them aware of what the current open notice of violation is.
Aren't these sales always as is and the responsibility of whoever purchases them? It's on them, right? I mean, that's the way the county runs these. Since
Yes.
we wouldn't be culpable for, we provided information as we were requested to do so. And at this point, whoever buys it, it's on them to address anything. And just for the benefit of the people online, our solicitor is nodding his head in agreement, so that's good to know. So, thank you, Solicitor Cole.
I mean,
Very well.
personally, I find this approach unacceptable. Basically, what you're saying is you're gonna let somebody buy the property. We know from the interview with Mr. Hockel, there used to be a service station there. He said, oh, there may have been some petroleum products stored on site. We know that there are tanks underneath all that stuff. So what, we're just gonna sit here and wait till there's another problem and then have all heck break loose? And by the time it leaves the property, it's now everybody's problem again? It just doesn't sound like that's the right way to go here, and that's why I asked for this to be on the agenda. I mean, to me, it's like you see this headlight at us, and I'm like, you know, you're really just gonna sit there and go, gee, I hope they do the right thing? I find it unacceptable. I'm sorry. I was hoping that maybe that we had some mechanism, that we had some control over this and get them to do a phase 2 study on the darn property.
Unfortunately, with private property, there's no mechanism for the township to go in to do that unless you have something in your ordinances that allows you to do it, and I'm not aware of any that you possess. You can tell the person who's buying the property what you believe is there, and I would think that that person would do their due diligence and go out and check, because if they had it, but we can't force them to do it. And I don't believe we have jurisdiction over those. DEP went in and did their due diligence, and my understanding, and I haven't read the report, but typically after there's a contamination, they provide some sort of memo or some sort of writing that says that it has been remediated and it's
No,
passed
it was
off.
stable.
Okay.
It was stable. It was
Okay.
not remediated. It was not cleaned up.
So, but that would be under their jurisdiction.
Right.
That's, we don't have any jurisdiction under that.
The way I've seen things happen too many times in this township is somebody comes on a site on a weekend with a backhoe and starts moving stuff around. And then, oh, gee, they didn't get a permit, you know, and then all heck breaks loose. We've seen this movie before.
But there's nothing that we can do until they do that, unfortunately.
Unless we have an ordinance in place.
Unless we have an ordinance in place, but I don't know what ordinance we can have in place. There are already mechanisms from the county that says that if they do certain part of moving dirt, that they have to go get certain permits, like your MUDES permit or something like to that extent. So there already are rules in place that they're going to need to follow. They are also going to have to come in for all the permits to rebuild, and we can insert or tell them what we believe is there. And I would think if somebody owns a property, that if you said there are other buried tanks in there, that they're going to go check those tanks out, because it's going to be on them.
Oh. Once it leaves the property, it's on other people too.
Right. Well, once it leaves the property, and again, I'm not gonna assume anything, but typically, once that leaves the property, that's when insurance companies come into. And they're then gonna go in and help clean up, and everybody gets involved. But I don't know of a mechanism that we can do to go in to prevent it from happening and say, we need to check all this, we need to do a phase 2. It's going to be the person that goes in there that is purchasing the property that should do the due diligence to find out what problems may or may not be on the property.
I'll keep
Hey,
thinking.
Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Burns, Zieglerville Road. I'm a little confused with this upset sale thing that you're talking about. Are you trying to say that this property is going to be scheduled for like a sheriff's sale type situation because the property taxes haven't been paid? Is that what this is about?
Yes.
So, yes, so sheriff sale is for when the mortgage company's prompting it, and upset sale is for delinquent real estate tax, which this property has. So it is scheduled for the continued upset sale scheduled for December 7th of this year.
Okay, well, our solicitor's sitting there right next to you, I'm assuming. He died and it's in probate. It hasn't come out of probate court, and supposedly my neighbor at 28 Zieglerville is the estranged sister. So obviously somebody down at the county doesn't realize that this thing is stuck in Pennsylvania probate court, and, something needs to be done here. Now, under our nuisance ordinance for the second home that's on the building, our nuisance ordinance would go ahead and take care of, having LTL write something up for that. But, I think the township needs to step up here and, make sure that the county doesn't go trying to sell this thing out from underneath before the probate court happens. As soon as the leaves fall off the trees, everybody and their brother is going to see right through it. They're going to see the old building to the left. They'll probably be able to see the garage that's still intact, and they'll see the mound of, demo debris that's left behind. They're not going to see the stuff that's 1,000 feet into the woods. But I don't understand how the county can jump through and try to get the taxes taken care of when this hasn't come out of probate court yet. So something doesn't sound right.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
If there's no more discussion on this topic, we're going to move into public comment. Do we have any public comment? Phil, go ahead.
Before I speak, I'd just like to give everybody context map so you understand what I'm talking about here. So let me just get the, what did you share there? Phil Smith, 205 Carlisle Road. In November of 2022, my wife and I purchased the land that you see in highlighted yellow in the center of the context map. It's the old Reinert property, former Reinert property. And it was about 22 plus acres of land, which had a house and the associated land around the house, which we severed off and sold. We kept the remaining 21 acres of land, and we're in the process of preserving it permanently. Now that's a multifaceted approach to working with the property, but in working with natural lands who we associated with to do the preservation of the property, we have a number of factors that we're looking at, and one of the things that my wife and I would like to offer to the township, if you're willing to consider it, is a permanent public trail easement placed on the property, which would be donated to the township and for your use and for the public's use in the future if you
are interested in that. The specifics of where it will be located at this point are yet to be seen. We have a number of moving parts involved in the preservation of the land. The property basically is composed, what we're left with now, of 4 parcels, 2 of which are in Lower Frederick, 2 of which are in Limerick Township. Consequently, we're engaging Limerick Township in a discussion about a trail easement dedicated to them as well. We won't be donating that, but we would donate the trail easement to Lower Frederick Township because we're Lower Frederick residents and we believe in what we're trying to do here in the township with pedestrian connections, et cetera. But needless to say, there is, we'll call it the mechanics of getting this done, that will rely on Limerick Township participating with accepting the possibility of a trail easement on their section of our property. They have adjoining open space, which you can see that is in purple, that has common property boundaries with our property, and of course you can very clearly see the proximity of the property to the Lower Frederick Stonehill Greenway trail system, et cetera. So all that said, it's a kind of a very strategic piece of real estate for you to gain a trail easement, and we are willing to work with the township in creating a donation if you're willing to accept it. So that's, I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot here to make a decision tonight, but if there's an expressed interest, I'd certainly return and begin a serious conversation about how we would locate that and what the the possibilities are of creating that if you're interested in doing it now, or if you just want to hold the easement into the future at some future time, you'd be interested in doing the trail, you'll have the easement in place. So we'd be willing to do that on behalf of the township.
Thank you. This is a very interesting proposal. I'm not sure what you're looking right at me. I'm not sure what the next steps would be if we were to consider it. What would?
I mean, it's a donation. I think we would have to come up with kind of where the trail was. I mean, that's one of the most important things for you as the landowner. And then we'd have to work out some sort of an agreement with that easement to determine what we're going to do with it. So there's a lot more talks. This would just be the initial, are you interested? And, anytime there's a possible donation to the township, you want to be interested, and then see where it goes from there. But there's a lot more that needs to be discussed about it.
Yeah, very definitely. In fact, from our planning for the conservation of the entire tract, there's the environmentally sensitive areas that need to be considered, and the viability of a trail. I mean, if I put a trail just anywhere, it may not be conducive to usable purposes into the future. So, and again, we're coordinating with the Limerick Township folks. We've already had one meeting with their staff, and they're due to come back out this week for a site visit. So there's a number of moving parts that need to, be considered here. But if you're willing to look at it positively and the potential of a donation, we certainly would be happy to work with the township.
First, Phil, thank you very much. It's a very generous offer on your part and Gail's part. I think this would be, since we have that working arrangement with Natlands for trail considerations, when we move, assuming we move forward, it would make sense to have them work with you. To me, there's no real downside to engaging you with this, and we really appreciate you considering this for the township.
I believe in what we're trying to do here in Lower Frederick.
Yeah.
We're certainly interested in trying to support it.
So that sounds like there is interest, and we look forward to more details in the future.
Yeah, as I said, I am currently working with Natlands to do the conservation easement. We hope to put on the entire tract in the next couple of months, and I can certainly have them contact you if you want to try to establish them as a mechanism to help you through your considerations, or we can sit down at planning commission level or staff level. I don't know how you want to handle it here, but we're open to whatever suggestions you want to make.
Don't make the formal request, because, all this is gonna cost money. It's not just a simple, so, I have to say, we need more information. This is, for this to be put in public comment, we could have prepped the board a little bit better if you're looking for an answer. But that's not a simple thing that they can get to answer, because there's cost at play.
Well, I think all he's trying to do is just take the temperature of the board, and I think
Yeah,
it's a
that's-
great
that's the
idea.
takeaway I had from
And
what
I have
you
no-
said earlier.
No reservations about, taking the next steps to understand more of this offer from Phil and Gail Smith. Yeah, that was my understanding of what this is all about.
Yes.
And-
At this point, more than that, and I do look forward to, exploring it further if you're all interested. And then, like I said, if it comes down to you want to accept the easement, you don't want to build it, hey, fine. But 10 years from now, you have the easement in place and you want to build a trail there, fine. And again, that may be contingent upon your negotiations with Limerick Township once they move along with it. They actually had a designated, my property was designated in their official map several years back. They developed an official map, and they, believe it or not, have my property assigned to it, so it's sort of a natural for them if they were able to acquire it now and they want to engage with Lower Frederick and the actual planning for a trail. It provides an opportunity for Lower Frederick Township residents to use open space that they acquired over the last 20 years. They acquired the Bauman tract and the subdivision lands that were from Pasquale. I think, Terry, you know about that. I think you did the excavating for Maria Lane. And, that came by way of a transfer, I think, of development rights. They ended up with a portion of that land which became open space. They're sort of interested, and it has to go before their board of supervisors, but their manager and their planning staff all agree that it would be a great opportunity for them, and they would advocate on my behalf. So we'll see where that goes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment? Anyone on Zoom? Oh,
Yeah, Mara?
go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Bob Burns, Ziegler Railroad. So, just to stay consistent with my statements over the years, it seems like I have to bring up at a Board of Supervisors meeting every year that we have signage that has tree branches in front of it that cannot be seen. If you're headed eastbound on Main Street, you come up to the intersection of Fulmer Road, the stop sign is blocked by trees. If you get down eastbound on Main at Spring Mountain Road across from Joe's, there's trees blocking the stop sign there. Now, I called the township last Friday. I gave Becky the information. I called her again this week. I believe I spoke to Jason either yesterday or this morning about it as well. I passed a sign, I believe, over on Meng Road that says, watch children. I mean, our road crew needs to pick up on these things and take care of them. They don't need to be reminded by us residents to bring it up at your meeting. And, I guess we could wait a month from now till all the leaves fall off the trees and then we can see the stuff. But I think we ought to get on board and get that stuff taken care of.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, that brings us to supervisor comment. Do we have any supervisor comment? No.
I have a comment.
You always have a comment.
No, I don't, not all the time. So I want to
Do you want them?
thank, I guess, Marla for having the return on environment presentation this evening. Supervisor comment, it kind of reminded me of a situation we had a few years ago where we had a developer come in And he kind of chafed at our ordinances and his open space requirements and things like that. And lo and behold, when somebody forwarded me the real estate listing for his personal residence, he proudly announced how close it was to public trails and open space, which I thought was kind of very interesting. So thank you very much for having that presentation tonight.
Thank you, you're welcome. All right, on that note, this meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Recording stopped.